Football fans, college football fans, welcome into Oklahoma Sooners Live here on Oklahoma at the Voice of College Football, part of the Voice of College Football Network. Very excited because, we already talked a little bit about Oklahoma's victory. Don't need to really dive too much into that, but we're going to linger on it just a little bit more because it was a big victory. It was a big win for Oklahoma. Being able to come out now sitting at 8-2, 4-2 in the conference, sitting in a pretty good spot, arguably one of the most impressive 2-week stretches for really any team in the nation. I guess Alabama had a very tough stretch there, really 4 weeks for them, where they had some tough games. Anyways, I think this was probably the most impressive 2-week stretch, at least for Brent Venables, a Brent Venables-led Oklahoma team specifically. I think has to be the most impressive stretch for him. So very, very excited, very happy for this coaching staff. I have been on here as a Brent Venables apologist many times, and I have been one of the guys to stand here and say, no, I want to keep him around. I want to see what he can do. And now you finally get to that point where it's like, okay, for those of you who wanted to fire Brent Venables at some point during his tenure, and I don't blame you. I understand where the frustration comes from, but it makes those of you who wanted to fire Brent Venables sit back and say, all right, he's sitting here at 8-2 after going 6 wins last season, looking like a much better team here this year so far. What do we make of this? And it's very interesting time to look at it and to try to figure out exactly what the future could look like for Oklahoma. Is Brent Venables just having a lucky stretch, or is this what his team is supposed to look like when things are going the way that he would have predicted or planned for them to go? And I think I would go with the latter. I think this is how a Brent Venables team was expected to look. So very excited to see what Oklahoma can do. So now with these 2 road wins, completely changing the trajectory of not just this season, but changing the trajectory of what this program can get back to. So very exciting time for Oklahoma Sooners fans just in general, and even looking further into the future for this Oklahoma football program. But after a devastating loss, I think the Texas loss definitely devastating, but then even just more frustrating, the Ole Miss loss, one that Oklahoma really felt like they should have won in many ways. I know Brent Venables felt like he should have, that Oklahoma should have come out of that game with the win, that he felt like they were the better team but didn't perform to that level. And then, of course, Oklahoma fans absolutely felt very frustrated and a lot of questions after that game, turning it around since then, beating South Carolina. And you can look at the score and see one thing, but if you actually watch that game, you see a completely different thing. And that was a dominant game for Oklahoma. And then turning around after that, going on the road to Tennessee and beating the Vols again in another matchup that, if you were to look at just the stat sheet, doesn't really feel like much of a dominant win. And I wouldn't say that was a dominant win by any stretch of the imaginary or of the imagination, but I would say that was a very solid win for Oklahoma, being able to go on the road to Rocky Top, take down the Vols there in their own stadium, the way that they did it. Again, just being able to find a way to make to help your defense win these games, and that's really what Oklahoma has done really well at here coming down the stretch in these last 2 games. But then going on the road in Tuscaloosa, one that many people didn't believe Oklahoma could pull off, and yours truly, I was one of them. I didn't predict Oklahoma to win, and I still kind of stand by my reasoning for that prediction. I know what I was thinking, and I knew that Oklahoma could win. I just wasn't going to sit here and put my prediction or my hope in the win there in Tuscaloosa. But yet Oklahoma proves a lot of doubters wrong yet one more time, and walks off the field, walks out of the stadium wearing the hard to kill t-shirts. Anyways, we're going to get into it, talk a little bit about the college football playoff picture. The playoffs, I've got it on the TV over here next to me, so that way I don't miss it. Should be coming up here. We should know here in about 20 minutes, probably 25, 30 minutes here is when we will know for sure where Oklahoma ranks, kind of give our reactions to how that playoff picture starts to look now with these current rankings and all of that. But first, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. And if you would, jump over to YouTube. If you're watching anywhere other than YouTube, jump over to YouTube, hit the like button, hit that subscribe button. And if you want to help support the channel just a little bit further, you can become a member today for as low as $2.99 a month. It's just a small fee to help us keep the lights on over here and help us keep on growing, help us keep on doing different things and kind of expanding our reach as well. So looking to do a lot more with this channel. We have shows on Sundays, Mondays with the Sooner Smiths, and then of course Tuesdays, Thursdays, even post-game Saturdays as well. So please subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and then of course becoming a member just helps us keep on doing what we're doing. So we also are offering a little bit more to just our members just for being members, but we don't take anything away from those who just want to sit here and watch our typical content here for our live shows and much more content out there for you guys pretty much daily. But anyways, let's jump down into it. Get a little bit into the playoff picture before the playoff rankings end up coming out. And apologies, I'll probably be turning my head over there just a little bit just to try to keep an eye on the TV as the rankings will come up, and I'm sure they'll jump up before I even get a chance to glance over at them. But anyways, the Sooners entered Week 12 as number 11 in the college football playoff rankings, the first team out of the playoffs because of the silly auto bids. I don't like auto bids. I will come out and say that. I think the auto bids are a little bit silly, specifically a group of 5 auto bid. This year, I'm not really sure that you could make a case that any of the group of 5 teams really deserve to be in that running for the playoffs. JMU is definitely in the discussion, and I think they deserve to be in that discussion, but I don't know that they really deserve to make it into the playoffs. So the auto bid to me just really seems silly. And then an ACC team that we don't have an ACC team up there in the mix right now, and you're just going to throw in an ACC team just because they won their conference. And I suppose in the past, I probably would have told you, yes, I want every conference champion to be in, but there's if it comes down to it where there are multiple teams from, let's say, the Big 10, the Big 12, and the SEC all have 10-win teams, and your conference champion is a 9-win regular season team. I'm not going to count your championship game because I think in today's college football, you don't count the championship loss. So why do you count the win? I suppose you could say, yeah, but look, they have a little bit of extra momentum leading into that with the conference championship win. There's an argument to be made there. So I just don't like auto bids. I don't. I suppose the group of I guess the Power 4 conference champions, I can make a little bit more of an exception there. I think I can look at that one and say, okay, we kind of need an auto bid for those who are winning their conference. If they're a Power 4 conference, they probably should be in, because that most likely means that you're sitting there at 10 wins, right? So then it comes down to the group of 5, though. And so before this week, let's say that the rankings would have stopped and we were jumping into the playoffs here just last week, Oklahoma would have been sitting out with I think at the time would have been USF jumping into the playoffs over Oklahoma just because of the auto bid. I think that's silly. But anyways, getting beside myself, getting beyond my point. But anyways, Oklahoma would have ranked just outside of the projected 12-team playoff field. And then the 23-21 upset win at Alabama and Tuscaloosa changed everything for the Oklahoma Sooners, really changing the trajectory of what they could do with this season. And of course, with Texas losing to Georgia the same weekend, Oklahoma's really poised to jump up significantly here in the rankings. My prediction is that they're ranked number 8. I think that Oklahoma's win against Alabama, and especially if they were able to close out the season, I think Oklahoma should be ahead of Notre Dame. I already thought that it was silly that Notre Dame was ranked ahead of Oklahoma or Texas. I really need a good argument, because I just don't like the argument that, yeah, but since their 2 losses, they've been great. Their only ranked win is against USC. Now, they've had some decent wins sprinkled in there, and I say decent very graciously, but I just don't understand what we see in this Notre Dame team saying that they deserve to be in there. I know their two losses were against tough opponents. I get that, and I'm willing to kind of hear that out. But to be ranked ahead of Oklahoma and Texas, at least as of last week, seemed kind of harsh to me with both teams having better wins. And for Oklahoma's sake, I think Oklahoma had quote unquote better losses because I don't think any loss is good. I don't like the terminology a good loss or a bad loss. I think there are bad losses, and really every loss is bad. But I think there are maybe categorically bad losses when you get stomped. I think Oklahoma losing to Texas was a bad loss, and you can come out here and say, yeah, but the block in the back, what happened in that game was a bad loss. The way that game ended up coming up, because the committee is not going to look at Oklahoma losing to Texas and say, oh yeah, but John Mateer, they might take John Mateer's thumb into factor, I suppose, but they're not going to look at it and say, yeah, but there was a block in the back that shouldn't have been. Just like they're not going to look at the Oklahoma Auburn game saying, "Oh, but this ruling that was controversial is why," and they shouldn't. They shouldn't look at the whoa, but what ifs, because then I think you could say a lot of what ifs about a lot of different teams. I think there are a lot of teams that it's like, oh man, if things would have gone differently, they could have gone from a 3-win team to an 8-win team, and so we're looking at them a lot different. I don't think that's how it is going to be, and I don't think that's how it should be. But anyways, we will know the playoff rankings for sure here in about 15-ish minutes is when that playoff show starts. So don't tune away from here because we'll talk about the rankings here as soon as they drop. But anyways, ESPN's Football Power Index now gives Oklahoma sitting at about a 55% chance to make the playoffs, which I think was right around the 22-23 mark just before the Alabama game. And some projections have Oklahoma moving all the way up to 8, some of them up at 9. I've seen some individual projections showing Oklahoma moving up to number 7. I don't know. I think it's going to really fall down to how good was this win for Oklahoma, and then also mixing in all of the chaos that went in around it. So does Oklahoma jump above Alabama? Because there's arguments that, yeah, but Alabama looks like the better team, and all these arguments around that, and that they really they won on the stat sheet, and therefore because they won on the stat sheet, we can kind of make an argument that Alabama should be ranked above Oklahoma. But at what point do we not look at this and say head to head? Because for one, Oklahoma's losses on the season are, again, I say this in quotation marks because I don't like this terminology, but Oklahoma's losses are better than Alabama's. And then, of course, Oklahoma's wins, they have just as many ranked wins, but one of those being over Alabama. I don't care about ifs and buts. I don't care about any of that, because if Alabama didn't turn the ball over 3 times, sure, maybe they would have won. That's really what it comes down to. And let's talk about that just for a moment, because you look at the stat sheet. We brought this up before, but Alabama outgained Oklahoma, nearly doubled Oklahoma's total yardage. And a lot of people, Alabama fans, I'll give some grace to, because I think I can sympathize with, I guess, like the quote unquote homer take on this. But for those on the outside looking in, not understanding the stat difference, how is Oklahoma's offense supposed to put up as many yards when they're starting on the other side of the 50 a lot of the times? You look at the 3 turnovers. So first, starting off to start off the game, Oklahoma started off the field in plus territory because of the punt return. Isaiah Satania had a big punt return to put Oklahoma up. It seems really silly to me to sit here and talk about the yardage when you just look at where Oklahoma started on all of those drives. I think that's really ultimately what it comes down to. And I'm going to pull this up real quick too, just because I was, again, unprepared and didn't have this. But going back to that Alabama game and seeing where Oklahoma started off their just on the very first drive of the game, we look. They were on Alabama's 30-yard line to start the game. 30-yard line. So you only have 30 possible yards that you could possibly get. Now they didn't end up making 30 yards; they only got 23, and ended up having to settle for a field goal. The next drive, they started at their own 37, still like right around the 40-yard line. That's still pretty good field position. Where let's look at Alabama's first two. Starting off on, sorry here, starting off on their own 20-yard line, and then on their second possession, sitting there on a touchback, their own 25. They're starting it back in their own territory and deep in their territory. Now going forward, when Oklahoma did have a little bit better field positions, then you sit there and you look at their drive where they were able to get Alabama to fumble the punt and turn it back over. Now they're sitting on the Alabama 22-yard line, and Oklahoma ends up scoring on that, but it's off of 22 yards. So you kind of see where I'm getting at here. For the most part, you have a lot of these, or you look at Oklahoma's only Oklahoma's points. They had the one touchdown on offense, but they also have the touchdown from the pick six that Eli Bowen had. So the stats don't tell the whole story there in that whole matchup. And so I think there's a lot of narrative as if Oklahoma wasn't the better team in this because you look at the stat line and the stats just look so lopsided. And I apologize. I feel like I was kind of stuttering and stammering through a lot of that. But just to kind of prove that Oklahoma didn't really – they started at I think it was a plus 22 net yard average. So they started an average 22 yards closer to the end zone. And I might just be quoting that stat wrong because I don't have that written down. But they started a good – a significant amount of yardage closer to the end zone than Alabama did on every single drive. And so Oklahoma is not going to rack up yards when the defense is just performing this well. Just something to kind of throw out there. Anyways, quick refresher on the format for everyone because we're nearing in on the college football playoff rankings show coming up here over to my left here very soon. So college football playoff, 12-team playoff format for those of you who weren't around last year. That's what it is again this year. It is a little bit different because the 5 highest-ranked conference champions, they get an automatic bid. So that includes the Power 4 and the highest group of 5 that makes it in as well. So non-power conference, they get the bid as well. So you've got 5 that get an auto bid into the playoffs every year, no matter how it is. You get all Power 4, get an auto bid, so you get the ACC, SEC, Big 12, Big 10, all get an automatic spot in there if you win your conference. And I think ultimately, like I was mentioning before, I think ultimately I kind of agree with that. But then the one I don't agree with is just an auto bid for the group of 5. I don't know that there's really a group of 5 team that stands out in the field that makes me feel like they deserve to be in there. But nonetheless, that's what it is. So you get 5 there. The remaining 7 spots all go to the at-large teams. So basically everyone else who is ranked up, I suppose, in the top 12 if they're not one of those 5 auto bids. And then also Notre Dame seems like they get an auto bid this year as well. But no, I think Notre Dame is a playoff team. Don't get me wrong. I just don't think they deserve to be ranked above Oklahoma. And I think there's a couple of other teams that they might rank above that I don't feel good about them being ranked above them. But for 2025, for this season, there is the 4 highest ranked teams overall, not just the conference champions, receive first round buys. Last year, the Power 4, or it wasn't even the Power 4, it was just the highest ranked auto bid conference champions. They were locked into that first round bye. This year, it's not that way. So whoever the top 4 teams, which currently I think is Ohio State, Indiana, Texas A&M, probably Georgia this week. It was Alabama. So there you're going to have, I mean, if it were to stay that way, then you'd have 2 SEC teams and 2 Big Ten teams auto bid it into the first round bye. Kind of funny that it would work out that way, to have the two toughest conferences leading the charge there in the first round bye. So this year it is just whoever is ranked 1 through 4 get that first round bye. So you want to be ranked number 4 if you want that bye. If you don't want that bye, then lose another game or something. I don't know what to tell you there. But then seeds 5 through 12 will play the first round games at a home stadium of the higher seedings. So it'd be 5, 6, 7. Let me think here. And 8, correct? 5 through 8 would get, and then 9, 10, 11, and 12. So it'd be 5 through 8 would play at their home stadiums for the first round. And this is something that I was actually talking to my dad about this week. He's kind of a traditionalist, and I understand that. I think I'm the same way. I like college football for the way that it was when I was growing up, which was longer ago than many of you might believe. I know I've got the baby face to make it seem like I was still growing up just yesterday, but anyways, I agree with my dad. I like the way that things always have been. But with this expansion, I personally really enjoy the home advantage of that first round. And my dad said, well, that's just unfair. You look at just about any other sport, the NFL, NHL, NBA, they all have home field advantages in the playoffs. You could argue that, I don't like professional sports, and so I don't want it to be like professional sports and how they're doing it. And I can hear that argument out. And I think that's where my dad was coming from whenever I was talking to him about this. But here's where I stand on it. You play well enough to where you're in that higher seating, and you should get rewarded. Not only that, but with the expansion of the playoffs, I think it's just unfair to ask so much. I know that fans will show up to, no matter if you were to have a round of 64 and you were to have however many more home games in that, you're going to play 30 more home games than you typically would, whatever, then fans would show up. Fans would, or sorry, not home games, but if you were to have 64 in the playoffs and you were to have 30 games or whatever, 20 some games out in random places and just all over at neutral sites, you're going to be playing it out to where they're all neutral sites. Fans will show up to those neutral site games, especially for bowl games and for playoff games, especially playoff games. Fans will show up. And so I understand the money aspect of that you can get people, drive businesses to all these different towns, all of that, whatever. I like the fact that you are, first of all, kind of saving money in some regard, maybe not. That's just a thought on the top of my head, but from doing it in your own stadium, so you're not having to pay another neutral site stadium. But I love the home stadium for the aspect that you get the pageantry of college football. The college football is so special because of the pageantry of the sport, because of the atmosphere in the games, and that's just something that you don't get in other sports. And so you take that pageantry away if you're playing on a neutral site. I love the home games, and as it stands, I think if Oklahoma wins out, they're probably going to host the first round playoff game, which is extremely exciting for Oklahoma fans. And hopefully Oklahoma fans are recognizing that, realizing that, and excited about that. And I would assume probably the team knows that that's probably the case. But not to linger on that because we want the team to focus on the next game. But anyways, Oklahoma's playoff berth, simple math for Oklahoma: win out. You win out, you're in. I heard someone. I was listening to someone in the media talking about Oklahoma and how if they were to win out, they're not sure. A 10-2 Oklahoma might not make it in, and I think that's ridiculous to say because the playoff committee has already awarded Oklahoma at number 11, saying, yeah, you're in, and you beat Alabama, that most likely at least puts you up into the top 10, which locks you in to the college football playoffs. What scenario would Oklahoma drop out of the top 10 now if they were to win out? Because they've got two respectable teams. I'm not going to say good teams, but two respectable teams coming into Norman to finish out the season. But anyways, I think that's just absolutely crazy talk to say that there's a scenario that Oklahoma drops out if they were to win out. So Oklahoma two home games remaining. Missouri this Saturday, and then LSU on November 29th. So a 10-2 record. Victories over ranked opponents, Tennessee, Alabama on the road, plus Michigan and Auburn. It's going to give Oklahoma one of the best and one of the strongest resumes in the entire country. And so I think that would be just fine. Now, losing to Missouri or LSU, maybe with some other chaos, there's a path. I just don't see it. But the ESPN All-State Playoff predictor, it's given before it was giving Oklahoma 99% chance to make the field if they won out, and that was before the Alabama game. So I would imagine now, after winning the Alabama game, it's got to be higher than that, and probably a pretty sure thing because they're sitting there in the field now. If they were to win out, there's no reason for them to drop out of the field. So they just have to go off and beat Alabama. They have to beat Missouri, and then LSU. And as long as they get through those, I just don't see a scenario where Oklahoma doesn't make it in. Anyways, just checking over real quick to make sure and see if those playoff rankings have come out yet, but not quite. But Oklahoma is essentially in the contention. They're not in any kind of contention for the SEC championship, but they are in contention for the playoffs. So there's just no way for that. So, and ultimately, I don't know if you really want to go to the playoff or to the conference championship game anymore. The way that the playoffs are expanding, this is a really weird take, and it's one that I don't like that it makes sense to me. But to me, it makes more sense to not play an extra game. Don't risk extra injuries. And I think Oklahoma fans can probably sympathize with that notion, with that thought. Why play an extra game and risk injuring your players if you're already locked in? Now, if you're in the situation where, let's say, Oklahoma did go 9-3 this season, and they were just barely out of the college football playoff contentions, then making it to the SEC championship game and winning that one could get you in. So if you're in that situation where you're the first few out, the conference championship game could get you into the playoffs. And I think that's the case for BYU right now. I mean, BYU could be just barely sitting out of the college football playoff field, and then end up winning and getting themselves in. So yeah, I think I think that's very, very interesting to look at. But anyways, I'm going to jump over to the chat just because I see you guys in the chat. Everybody, drop in the chat. Just say hello. Say what's up. If you want your chat read on the show, donations, super chats are the best way to go. But Modern Day Caveman's in the chat as always. What's up, Modern Day? He says, just happy to be in the position where we're at now, since we were pretty much written off by all media and analysts before the season even started. Yeah, it's really crazy. And then even kind of going on with Adam Carrier, he's in the chat. He says, Boomers, is this college football playoff pod tonight? It pretty much is college football playoff pod tonight. And kind of going on what Modern Day Caveman was saying, it's crazy to be in this position. And I think after the Texas win, I felt like I was one of the only ones that said, hey, just hold off, guys. Because 10-2 is still on the table. 11-1 was still on the table at that point. Just hold off. Don't freak out just yet, because Oklahoma still has a path to the playoffs, and it's not out of the realm of possibility. It's not like crazy to think that they could have made the playoffs, because here we are, and Oklahoma's sitting here now. We get to sit here all night and talk about the college football playoff rankings as if they matter for Oklahoma, because they do. So yeah, it's a really great feeling to be in this spot. And for me, even, I'm a big fan, okay? So I'm a fan of Oklahoma. I want Oklahoma to win. But I also try to be as unbiased. I don't know if that's the correct word, but I try to be as real with my takes on Oklahoma as I can, because I am in the media. I'm covering this team. And so covering this team, I think, is even more fun than just being a fan in years like this, because of all the highs and lows that you've gone through here in the last couple of seasons, but then even into this season. Early in the season, injuries and Jade not performing well, and everyone freaking out about all this. There's no way we make it through the SEC. And now Oklahoma made it through two of the toughest games on their entire schedule. And they're talking about the college football playoffs. And let me just throw this in there as well. I don't like making comparisons, and this might not be a good comparison. This may be one that a lot of people cringe at, but think back to Ohio State last season. They were just kind of a mediocre team, really, all season long. They should have been, with the roster they had, they should have been an outstanding, just dominant team. But they really weren't. They ended up losing, I think, earlier in the season to Oregon. They ended up losing their last game of the season to Michigan, a game that they should have never lost. And then they move on from the Michigan game and somehow still make the playoffs, and questionable whether they should have made it in the playoffs by some. I'm not going to question it, because especially with hindsight, why would you? But they make it to the playoffs, and they're red hot. They got hot at the right moment. Now for Oklahoma, they're sitting in an even better position because they got hot and they have momentum. They have room to build momentum heading into the playoffs. If they could close out these two games and win these two games similar to how they beat South Carolina, this is an Oklahoma team that could look like a very scary team to face in the playoffs, especially if they're ranked up there in the top 8 and they end up taking home a home field advantage in the first round of the playoffs. This could be a very scary football team heading into the playoffs if they're able to build on these last 2 wins and build some momentum heading into the playoffs. Now, I'm not comparing them to Ohio State. I really don't have a lot of faith that Oklahoma would win the national championship or even make it to the national championship this year. But there's a narrative that could be built for that. And that's kind of where I'll leave that right now. Anyways, jumping back over to the chat. Terry's in the chat. What's up, Terry? He says, we beat them at their place. Absolutely. Oklahoma sure did. Yeah, it was a surreal moment. And for me, I was covering the basketball game up in Sioux Falls, and I was sitting in the media room for as long as I possibly could. Everyone else already out of the media room, heading over to either down to the court or up at the press boxes. And I couldn't leave, because here Oklahoma's down to a nail biter. And then the big, I think it was the fumble. Was it the fumble from? Yeah, it was not Owen Heineke, Taylor Wine. It was that fumble, right? That ended up getting Tate Sandell basically the game-winning field goal. And then I'm sitting here like stressed, like, okay, well, now I got to get out here to the game. So I get out to the basketball game. Luckily, the basketball game didn't start quite yet, and they were able to push that off just enough. And shout out to the guy that was sitting next to me, one of the Nebraska coverage guys. He had it up on his laptop as soon as I came up. So I said, "Hey, do you mind if I watch that with you?" He said, "Oh, absolutely." Here, and like say, let me watch the rest of it with them. Just a surreal moment. It just to upset Alabama in their home stadium, the way that Oklahoma did it too. And it gets overlooked because, again, like I mentioned, and I won't try to go through all of that again, but the stats just lean against Oklahoma. There's no way Oklahoma wins that game with those types of stats outside of the defense just being dominant. And then, of course, you got to give it to special teams as well with the punt returns. Isaiah Satania setting up field goal position on the very first drive. And then, the special teams with Tate Sandell doing what he's got to do. Even the punt, the last punt of the game to put Alabama deep in their own territory and make them really have to drive the distance of the field. Just crazy. A crazy game. The way that it all happened, I think, was what made it even more surreal. Jimmy's in the chat. He says, just win and you're in. I like that. You said just win out, but I wanted to keep it, just take out, take out away from that sentence. Trying to figure out how to say that sentence. Just win and you're in. I like that. Let's make a t-shirt. That's a t-shirt idea. Thank you. I'm going to use that t-shirt idea. Putting it on a t-shirt. Just win and you're in. Go back to Adam real quick. He says, I'm happy with where you're at, where OU is at right now with the college football playoff talk. Yeah, I mean, it's, again, just crazy to think that we are sitting here when you back up to the beginning of this season where Oklahoma was at. I wasn't putting Oklahoma in the playoffs, and I'm biased. I want Oklahoma to be in the playoffs, and so I wasn't putting them in the playoffs. I don't think anybody was really. I really don't think so. I'm trying to think if I know a single media person that was saying the Oklahoma Sooners make the playoffs. Maybe Jake Crane. I'll have to look and see what he had, because I feel like he said 10-2 for Oklahoma. So I just don't really know. Yeah, it's just it is crazy. And Jimmy says they're in a lot better place than this time last year for sure. Yeah, absolutely. I apologize too. I don't know why my eyes are having a hard time reading. I need to get some glasses to help me especially when I'm staring at the computer screen so much. But anyways, Stacy says, "Hey, it's 10-2." Stacy, yeah, you were right. I mean, I was wrong. I'll say that. Actually, I wasn't wrong yet. I hope I am wrong, because my prediction was far off. Hopefully, far off, far off. 2 games off. But anyways, no, Stacy, you were right. You absolutely deserve something for that too. So, not a lot of Oklahoma fans were predicting 10-2, Stacy, and I think you were only picking 2 to try to pull yourself away from being such a sunshine pumper. But you still leaned into it all season long. But no, I appreciate you with all the positivity leading into this season. All right, playoff rankings are supposed to be starting here in about 2.5 minutes, I see. So I'll keep my eye over there. You guys drop it in the chat as well to help me keep my eye on the rankings. We're going to see where the Oklahoma Sooners end up here in it. Jimmy says, I predicted 9-3. That was pretty close. I predicted 8-4 for Oklahoma. I thought that I wanted to see improvement from this team. That's what I expected from Oklahoma. I want to see improvement. I don't think the offense is going to be that great. I don't think they're just going to have leaps and bounds better. I just want to see less injuries, a coherent offense, and the same defense as last year. And it's a tough schedule. Now, some of these teams weren't as tough as we thought. Some of them were tougher than we thought. I think Mizzou could be tougher than we thought, depending on if they get Bo Prabula back, and a lot of things surround that game. And Bo Prabula is not their entire team, so I don't want to just shake them off and act like they're not. I think this may be the toughest game of the season because of where it falls. Because it's Missouri, who will play their hearts out, and 2, it falls right after Oklahoma came off of such momentum swinging wins. Can Oklahoma bounce back after those wins to close this thing out? I think this is going to be not the toughest team, but the toughest game that Oklahoma's played all season long. And I think it's an 11 a.m. kickoff. What the heck is up with that? Anyways, yeah, it's going to be very telling for Oklahoma this week. All right, let's see. Kind of going through. Jumping forward. So Oklahoma, moving forward, Oklahoma needs to take care of business at home. We all know that. We all know that. As fans, we can sit here and celebrate all we want, but the team needs to win out. They need to win this week against Missouri at home. Right now, I'm seeing anywhere from 7.5 to 9.5 point favorites for Oklahoma, which is about right. I think that's about right, especially because, like I said, Missouri's overlooked because of the Bo Prabula injury. Bo Prabula could be back. I don't know yet, but anyways, Missouri, they're 7-3 right now. 3-3 in the SEC after a very dominant win this past weekend. Very dominant, 49-27 over Mississippi State. Ahmad Hardy rushed for 300 yards. Yeah, I mean, they're currently ranked number 23 in the AP poll. So we're really going to see a true test here. I think the defense is going to have to do their thing, but if Bo Prabula is back in for Missouri, I think the problem here for Oklahoma lies on you can't just focus on stacking the box and stopping the run. The good thing for Oklahoma is their strength on defense will actually do damage against Missouri's strength on offense. This past week against Alabama, Oklahoma's strength on defense, that run defense, didn't really take anything away from Alabama because Alabama wasn't using the run. And actually, Alabama performed pretty well on the run, considering what they had done previously throughout the season, and what Oklahoma has done previously throughout the season on run defense as well. But for Missouri, this is a much different game where your strength on defense, that run defense, does attack and take away something that is a very positive thing for Missouri's offense. So that's where I think this one really plays into Oklahoma's hand quite a bit. Of course, closing it out with LSU at home, who's currently 6-4, 3-4 in the SEC. That one is absolutely a winnable game, especially for the fact that all of the drama that has gone on within that program here in the last few weeks. Firing your head coach, benching Garrett Nussmeier. I didn't see this past week what they did. They ended up coming back against Arkansas, but I didn't watch that game at all. Just didn't care to see what was going on in that game. Just obviously, I hope LSU wins because I want them to look as good as we could hope. So if they're sitting there at 7 wins, I don't know if they play this weekend. I assume they do, but if they're sitting there at 7 wins, then that looks a lot better for Oklahoma to close out the season. But anyways, we're going to jump into kind of a little bit more of the Missouri game preview, but I don't want to miss our college football playoff rankings. I was kind of thinking that they'd already be on and going by now. All right, so at 25, you got Arizona State, Tulane, Houston, Missouri. Apologies, I know I'm looking off the screen here. I still recognize you all there. You got Missouri is ranked number 22. They were previously unranked, so now they're ranked number 22. That's good for Oklahoma. Very good for Oklahoma. That gives Oklahoma a chance to have yet another ranked win. That'll be Oklahoma's 5th ranked win if they could pull this one off. Texas jumps all the way down to 17. Tennessee up there still in the top 20 now, which is really good for Oklahoma. Again, I like this a lot. Michigan up there at number 18, stayed stagnant, but still looking good for Oklahoma. And you got Georgia Tech there at 16. None of this really pertains too much. A lot of it does kind of go in Oklahoma's favor. Tennessee being ranked now, jumping up 3 spots. Michigan staying ranked up there in the top 20. Texas still staying in the top 20. I mean, that's crucial for Oklahoma because you don't want if Texas can beat Texas A&M, that's really good news for Oklahoma because your worst loss doesn't look as bad anymore. All right, so we've got up through 16. Virginia's in there ranked. Georgia Tech as well. So you got some ACC teams. I think Virginia, Georgia Tech, and then Miami. Those are the 3 in the ACC that we're looking at for who ends up getting into the ACC championship. USC ranked number 15. Now, I actually said that I really would like to see the scenario. I don't think this could happen or would happen, but I would like to see the scenario where USC jumps up, ends up getting into the playoffs, and Oklahoma hosts USC first round in Norman. That's my dream scenario. That or Notre Dame. I wouldn't mind Oklahoma's matchup against Notre Dame. I think that could be a really good matchup for Oklahoma as well. Vanderbilt sitting at number 14. They're 8-2 right now. Miami up at 13. So they're just out of the bubble. But with their ranking, if they win the ACC, they're in the playoffs. So currently right now what I'm seeing is good news for Oklahoma because, again, Texas, you want Texas to look as good as they possibly can for the sake of you just want that loss not to look like a bad loss, worse than what it already is. So you kind of got to take that for what it is. Anyways, that's good. Tennessee being ranked and then Missouri being ranked is huge for Oklahoma because, like I said, giving them another win adds to the strength of schedule, strength of record as well. So if Oklahoma comes away with the win, Utah's up at number 12. So Utah and BYU, 2 Big 12 teams. Hard to get that to come off my tongue properly. Utah and BYU, the first 2 out. So they're sitting there now with whoever wins the Big 12, they're going to be in. But if the winner were BYU or Utah, they could move their way up into the playoffs. Excuse me. Alabama ranked at number 10. They dropped 6 spots all the way down to number 10. Not sure what the projections were showing Alabama. I don't recall anyways. But Alabama's sitting there at number 10. So they're still in the playoff talk. They're still expected to make the playoffs. And I think really all they have to do is just win out their last 2 games. They've got I forget one of the Illinois teams, Eastern Illinois, something like that, and then they've got Auburn. You don't want to put your hope into we have to beat Auburn in the Iron Bowl in Jordan-Hare in order to save our season. That's not where Alabama wants to be historically. Another really good news for Oklahoma. Notre Dame is sitting there at number 9, which means Oklahoma is in the top 8, which means they're going to end up getting that first round bye if they win out. I don't see how they don't. So really, really good news here. Really good news. So Notre Dame sitting there. I don't know. Oklahoma sitting at number 8, right about where I think everyone was predicting them. Oklahoma ranked at number 8 in the college football playoffs. There you have it. Exciting for Oklahoma. And again, to think that we're sitting here talking about Oklahoma in the top 10 to close the season and talking about all that Oklahoma has to do is win 2 manageable games at home, not even on the road. And we're talking about an Oklahoma team who just came off the road winning in Neyland Stadium and at Tuscaloosa. It's just how we're talking about this now just feels incredible. So Oklahoma ranked at number 8. That means, again, if they win out, they're sitting there at hosting the first round. And Oregon ranked just above Oklahoma. Oklahoma could jump up yet again with Oregon. If Oregon were to lose this upcoming weekend, they play USC. Anyways, moving down, and none of that really matters a whole lot. I guess moving down does. If Oklahoma wins out, just stays sitting where they're at or moving up in the rankings, they're sitting in a really good spot. And ultimately, I think that 6 through 8 slot, somewhere in there, that's really where you want to be in the playoffs. I think you talk about that middle pack, that's the tightest competition. I personally don't like the first round bye based on what I saw last week, and I think it just makes sense that the first round bye can get you into a sense of you're not working off any rust. Playing an easier team, I think if you were to play one of the group of 5 teams, something like that, one that you end up winning by too much, can get you on a little bit too much of a high. Beating a good team can keep you in a tough matchup, can keep you, first of all, it helps battle test you. And second off, it keeps you humble and appreciative of that win moving forward. And so it's probably a weird way of thinking, but I like that middle of the pack. When we're talking about 12 teams, I like that middle of the pack. Top 5 pretty much is exactly as we expected. Ohio State, Indiana, Texas A&M, Georgia, and Texas Tech. So currently right now, Oklahoma would be hosting Notre Dame. That is what the college football playoffs look like. And again, just a surreal moment to be sitting here after the Texas loss, after this whole off season leading into the season. And then, of course, after the Ole Miss loss, how many fans, how many media people counted Oklahoma out? Truly a special moment in this season. So savor this moment, because it could be one of 2 things. Either it all vanishes away and like, hey, remember that time that we were all excited about the playoffs? Or the one that I hope happens, savor this moment to say, man, do you remember that moment on a Tuesday evening when we were talking with Josh about Oklahoma's chances to make the playoffs? And here we are, hosting the first round. Here we are. Just truly special. It's a special time for Oklahoma fans. Let's move forward into this Missouri matchup real quick. On Saturday, 11 o'clock noon kickoff. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. But it's at Norman on ABC. So if you have YouTube TV, I guess they've turned it back on. I'm not going back to them. You can't threaten me with my college football and expect me to go back. You just think that you can just turn on ABC and I'm going to come crawling back to you? No, I'm much tougher to get than that. You're going to have to offer me money. You're going to have to pay me to accept your services back. That's the way I like to play things. I switched mine. And I'm not going to say who I switched it to, but I switched it for disclosed reasons. I'm not going to say who I switched to. But anyways, Oklahoma sitting there between a touchdown to 10-point favorite. I've looked at several different. I saw 7.5, 8.5, and 9.5 point favorites. So sitting there at a sizable favorite here at home. Over under sitting around 42.5 is what I saw. It might have changed since then. But looking at the series real quick, it's being renewed in the SEC, and I think we have to kind of look at this as a new rivalry with Missouri, because Missouri is a much different team than they were when they were with the Big 12. And so I just want to kind of throw that out there for Oklahoma fans. Although what a lot of Oklahoma fans like to brag about is Oklahoma sits there at 67-25 against Missouri, dating back to 1902. There's also 5 ties. I'm not going to include that in there. But the Sooners have won 18 consecutive home games against Missouri. That's crazy. Missouri's last win in Norman came back in 1966. That's what I'm seeing. And I don't know if I just saw the wrong stat, but that's kind of crazy. Well, there's a very easy way to do that right here. This is all it takes. We're going to pull up that because I know this is probably where I went to see that too. So we're gonna pull this up real quick. Full matchup page here in Norman. So yeah, Oklahoma. Man, this is pretty crazy. And if you look at the two teams too, just historically, Oklahoma is just it proves itself as a blue blood when you match them up against Missouri. But this year, I'm telling you guys, don't get too haughty on Missouri, because Missouri is a tough team now. Even this year, even if they don't have Bo Prabula, they're going to be a tough team. It's a tougher defense. And think of the team that Oklahoma faced last season. I know there was Jackson Arnold's turnovers and all of that we want to look at, but nonetheless, this is a Missouri team that was sitting there with second or third string quarterback last year and ended up coming out and beating Oklahoma. So just be leery of the Tigers and don't be surprised if they win just to upset Oklahoma's season. That would be the only purpose that they have in this game. They're not going to make it to the playoffs unless a lot of other chaos were to really go down. They're not. And so it's going to come down to they want to upset Oklahoma's season. They know that Oklahoma's sitting on this high where we're talking on Tuesday evening and talking about Oklahoma's college football playoffs. They want to come back on this podcast and sit here and scream at all of us the way that Bevo's bodyguard was earlier on in the season. Although I haven't heard much from him in the chat. Not recently. Right now, the Tigers are kind of really built around the run game, ranking pretty high nationally in rushing offense, right around 241, 242 yards per game rushing. Ahmad Hardy, the engine of this offense, he's rushed for over 1,300 yards, 15 touchdowns on the season. Last week's matchup, he rushed for 300 yards, the second most in Missouri history. And the passing game's been a weakness overall, but a lot of that, I think, comes down to not having Bo Prabula. He was a little bit inconsistent throughout the season, even whenever he was healthy. But again, that's going to happen in the SEC. Being a little bit inconsistent, showing some inconsistencies is going to happen no matter where you're at in the SEC. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I've got a lot of key to victories, but I don't want to dive into too much of it. We'll try to get a guest on here on Thursday. Maybe. I guess I've got to think ahead here. Everybody wish me safe travels as well. My wife and I are going to be going down to Florida on Thursday. So I'm not sure when I'll get to Florida, when I'll get settled in. We'll be at my in-laws, going down to see them. Their new place in Florida, enjoying the retirement life. But anyways, I'm going to stop there and not get too far ahead of myself, because I think we're going to cover a lot of the keys to victory X factors, all that stuff on Thursday, whether that be Thursday for another live show or we just get it out to you guys as a preview. But anyways, real quick, we'll jump over to the live chat. Make sure to leave a super chat if you want that if you want that to be shown on the screen. Got to scroll up a little bit here. You guys are active in the chat tonight. Appreciate you all. Jimmy says, I hope X Rob and Blaylock can play Saturday. Yeah, if we can get both of them to play even minimal snaps, I'll take what we can get. It's going to be very telling. And Brent Venables did mention that it's the depth is going to be tested there in the running back room. So very, very interested to see how they use them in this upcoming matchup. I really don't know what their backups are. I hadn't really looked into it too much. I did see where they talked about that a little bit, but yeah, it's nerve-wracking. Not having a running back this late in the season can hurt. I would almost rather try to test the depth. I don't know who else can step in. I don't know if Taylor Tatum or Javonte Barnes can get healthy enough to come in and just perform for Oklahoma. Yeah, but I don't know. Really don't know what you do if Jaden Knott is even still on the team. I don't know. But I would almost rather not see those two guys this weekend just to rest them up, because playoff talk right now, guys. Playoff talk. We gotta get into that playoff talk. Anyways, Stacy says, I want to see them take a big step on the offensive line in the offseason. I have asked a few times, but is it something we will track on offseason? But it is something we will track. Sorry. Absolutely. And it's definitely something we're going to have to track. I think from what I know, Oklahoma is looking to go and get a big target in the transfer portal when it comes to offensive line. Probably in that guard position, most likely also probably a center. They need that. They need that very, very much so. I think they're feeling very good about where they sit at the tackles with their two freshmen, and Fasusi specifically, but Fasusi and Foje have both been performing extremely well. Michael Fasusi, I believe he's had mentions. Both guys performing really well and above their where they're at, above their expectations. That's the word I was trying to come up with there. Apologies. You guys know how it gets towards the end of the show. Anyways, Modern Day Caveman says we need to break out the checkbook and pay NIL for elite O linemen. That's what I mean. From what I know, that's what their plans are going to be. Go get yourself a big offensive lineman, a big get. So just keep your eye on the transfer portal. If you see a guy that's like, oh man, you can't do without that, Oklahoma's probably going to break out the checkbook for that. And I hate talking about it that way. I really do. I don't like that kind of talk. If the transfer portal were a thing and it was still as easily accessible as it is now, but we were talking about go out and get a big get in the transfer portal to bring you in because of the name brand of Oklahoma, that's what I want to talk about. I hate talking about the money aspect of college football. I do. I think players should get paid for their name, image, and likeness. I think they should get paid. But the whole pay for play thing, I don't know. I don't know if I'm ever going to get used to it. I'll be honest. Jimmy says Bama fans want a rematch with the Sooners in the playoffs. I actually know of a lot of Bama fans that don't want a rematch because they're like, Oklahoma could have dominated us, but they just struggled in certain things that they shouldn't have. And I think that's very true. But anyways, let's see. Modern Day Caveman says BV is definitely going to have to save a linebacker to spy Bo Perbula the entire game because he's a true dual threat QB. I don't think that's the case. I don't think he's going to want to run very much. I agree with you. He is a dual threat quarterback. He is very dangerous on his legs. But after that injury, after that ankle injury, I just don't know that he'll be 100%. And Jimmy says the same thing. If Pabula plays, I don't see him 100%. I don't think he'd be 100% at all, let alone being able to run the ball. So you're right. You do want to keep an eye on it, but I don't think you have to necessarily waste the guy as a spy. I think you just train your guys to have have their heads on a swivel, expect him to run. And if he starts to hurt you in the run, then you switch and put a spy on him, no doubt. But I think you kind of play situational there and say, hey, just remember he can run, but he had an ankle injury, so he probably won't be as effective and probably won't try it as often. But if he starts to, we're going to switch it up and make sure we've got a spy in there. So you kind of play all of that all the same. Stacy says, I miss Bevo. While Bevo gave us a hard time, Bevo is willing to take it too. Bevo made some good points. I respect that. Yeah, absolutely. No, I love anytime that, even if you're going to come in here and just roast us in the chat, I'm all good with it. And I even told Bevo too, please do show up. If you guys win, you deserve the bragging rights. I think it's a little weird to go on another. I've never done that. Go on to another team's podcasts and shows and all that, and their media pages, whatever, all that fun stuff, comments, all that. I'm not. I don't know. I'm not a big. When I played sports, I was a trash talker and kind of a loudmouth at times. Probably got myself in a little bit of trouble at times when I shouldn't have. But I don't know. As a fan, I just think that's silly. But I respect it when I see people do it well, and I think Bevo is one of them. Bevo does it pretty well, but he hasn't been around lately. So maybe if Oklahoma makes the playoffs, he'll say, "Hey, I'm going to cheer you guys on." I don't know. Maybe. I don't think Oklahoma fans would do the same for Texas. But anyways, guys, make sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. If you want to support the channel a little bit further, you can become a member today by clicking join down next to our channel. Just click join. Or just scan that QR code over on the side of the screen as well. If you're watching it on your TV, you can scan that QR code, join, and become a member today for as low as $2.99 a month. Helps us keep on growing, helps us keep on exploring and doing bigger and better things and providing more for you guys. So we appreciate everything that you guys got going for us here. Appreciate you for tuning in. We'll catch you next time.